In this live coding session, we have a fair bit of discussion around when in SwiftUI do you need a binding? When don't you need a binding? What happens when the thing you're observing is an observable object versus not? It's pretty interesting trying to get an intuitive grasp on SwiftUI. Also, we start using GitHub Copilot Chat. Even though it sort of breaks the rules of TDD, let's use the tools and figure out where they go. We're back for another hour and a half of live coding with me. Hey, Mudshark and whoever else is here. Hello. We still have one more week before Europe changes to daylight savings. So hopefully after that, we'll have a few more people at the start, but glad to have you. And pardon me for giving my usual intro for folks who are watching after the fact. Hey, I'm John Reed. I am a developer and a technical coach. I do not currently work full-time as a technical coach anymore, but it's in me. It's in my blood, and I want to continue to do that on the side to help companies and individuals. You can learn more about that at qualitycoding.org, my website. And, if you like what you see, give it a follow or whatever, even if you're not done watching. All right. Anyway, good to be back. We ended last time on a surprise. Let's see here. Well, first, let's review what interesting things we did. Oh yeah, had to clean up how we do setup in a new world of Swift concurrency. And the answer is use my template. It'll help, but because my latest template changes for Swift concurrency for creating new tests, new test suites was predated the latest stuff, and I just now if you use boy, my brain. If you create a new test suite, you'll get this behavior straight out of the box where the test case for XE-test is sendable already. Hey, C-Films, welcome back. Good to see you again. Yeah, that's nice. We did some tidy first, which is clean up before you do other stuff, usually, and is the title of Kent Beck's new book, which I still have to get. I should note that. All right, putting down a little to-do to me. Buy KFB's new book. Quantum coding? Nah. Is any of that real yet? Hey, Marcus. We've been avoiding setup, and that has worked well, but it still felt good to get back to using a little bit of setup in one case. We did a TCR cheat, which was to add code commented out so that we don't lose it. It does feel like a cheat. Like, if you're going to commit that, you're committing stuff that's getting in the way of everybody else. So it's probably not ideal now that I think about it. And then this. Tests pass, but try for real, sad, sad face. And this was the sad face. We went through, we did, we're getting feedback about the guess from the check guess button, right? Follow the, what color is this now? Yellow. Yellow? Miro just changed the colors. They updated things. So you may notice, for example, the green is a little brighter. I kind of like it, but it makes me think that I may need to revisit some of these colors. That orange needs to pop. Let's change this, because otherwise it looks like yellow to do. Hello, B-Bait. I'll give to C-Film's question, what makes code high quality? I'm going to give what I've learned from Kent Beck, and that is, it's code that gives you options. Specifically, it is code that is easy to change and easy to reverse your changes. Reversibility is huge. So going with some new colors here. Let's see if, oh wait, this is to do. Okay, hopefully that's a little easier now to follow this orange color. Feedback, check guess button, show feedback about the guess, show feedback as colored pegs. Whoops, didn't mean to change that. And check button tap update. Check the check button tap, or tapping check button, updates feedback. And this was the sad point. Why is it not working? And I think it was Mudshark said, did you try with the other Xcode? Because I was on the beta. And here's the truth. This is the code unchanged, friends. Unchanged. It passes. And I guess the problem wasn't that it passed. The problem was that it didn't work, right? In the, when you're doing TDD, it's good to stay in the TDD loop, but when you're working with, especially mobile code, every so often, especially when you're saying a feature is complete, you should try it. Like you should, don't just rely on your unit tests. Actually try it. We reduce the amount of manual testing immensely, but we try it and it didn't work. Tapping these color choices put nothing in here. It works fine. It works fine. So was it a beta bug? I went back and tried it in the beta. Now, I didn't clean it again. Maybe it's because I went, I don't know. It annoys me that it works. It doesn't annoy me that it worked. It annoys me that we had such a great session last time doing TDD and we got here and bonk. And so this puppy is done. Tapping, oh, I haven't shown you. Tapping the check button. Let's say, so we have 4 choices and we have 4 pegs. So if I go 1, 2, 3, 4, every color will be in there somewhere because the colors are shuffled. So let's do something different like this. Oh, I got 2 in the right place. So that is the first time we've seen during the stream the check button working. And that's pretty cool, isn't it? Now we have some surprises and some cleanup to do. Let's first tackle this law of Demeter. At the bookmark, here is, and here's another one. Here are 2 violations of the law of Demeter. And if you're not familiar with the law of Demeter, just count the dots. It seems like we ought to be able to hide this by adding some methods that just do forwarding inside of game to say, give me the initial feedback pegs, and then update the pegs. So let's do that first. I feel like tracking this will take longer than doing it. And yet we have 2 things. Tracking takes longer. I want to stick with the sort of the philosophy of getting things done, GTD, where the rule of thumb for whether or not you create a task is if you can do it in less than 2 minutes, don't create a task. Just do it. So let's see if we can't put in-game something that does this, where game, by the way, do I have GitHub Copilot on? Let's just make sure that is active, because it is handy, even if I'm using it very, very lightly. Yeah, I drive my wife crazy because I try to follow the GTD mentality of, or the motto that, what is his name? The GTD guru. Hey, Johannes. Oh, yeah. Cool. I like Kotlin, what little I've done in it. And there are similarities to Swift. I don't know how similar SwiftUI is to, what is it in Kotlin? I forget what it's called. The dynamic, not dynamic. The words today. Yes, Jetpack Compose. Exactly. Marcus knows what I mean. Yep. That there are similarities, which is kind of fun. So let's go to game and see if we can't add function applesauce and paste. So by pasting, I can now say, okay, game, we're in game, so we don't need game. And now I've got a better name for this. Interesting, Johannes. And Copilot nicely figured out the type for me so that I didn't have to. So Applesauce is a naming convention. It's not a convention. It's part of the, wow, my brain is just way off. The naming progression of spacing the name, where you start with a nonsense name because that's already useful. And then you make it an honest name. And this is the honest name. And then maybe make it even better. Oh gosh, I'm spacing. Is that in anywhere? Yeah. What? Shoot. Is that up here? Ah, it's Arlo Belshi. I spot Arlo's name here. Arlo has great stuff. Naming is a process. Naming as a process. Oops. He's got some cleanup to do. Let's see if I can find it. Oh, his things are broken. Here we go. Llewellyn gives a good, short, less than 4-minute video talking about the 7 stages of naming. Check it out. Here, I'll just, it's gonna put in, gross. A weird, gross, googly thing. You know what? Just look for Arlo Belshi naming and then look for Llewellyn's video. Or look for Llewellyn is impossible to spell if you're not familiar with him. Let me finish this thought before I get to CFilm's random questions, which I appreciate. Okay, so this is now the forwarding, the delegating method. So we should be able to say back here, like that. And I am going to turn TCR back on. I had it off, and I may turn it off again for a second. Actually, I did a bad thing. First, let's TCR the existence of the new function. And this is refactoring. Now let's use it. Oh, welcome, first-time chatter. Maybe you've been lurking before. TCR. Yes, as Mudshark says. TCR. Look for TCR Kent Beck. There you go. This is the first place that Kent wrote about it. It's TDD on steroids, in a way, where if a test breaks, it reverts your changes. And that makes you move, that puts the fear in you and makes you move in small steps, smaller steps than I normally would. Okay, so this And by doing this, running the tests just now, it automatically did a commit and a push. You can see because origin is already up at the top. Small commits are the way. Micro everything. Micro commits, micro tests. What else is micro? Story slicing is a way of reducing the area. Micro objects. Micro all the things. Okay, so that one was good. That took a little longer than 2 minutes, and maybe I should have tracked that, but that's okay. Services. Now you're making me frown. All right, so initial feedback pegs and whatever this is. Processors. Okay, so as usual, paste, delete the game, return yes, Copilot, thank you. One more game to get rid of. And what is this? This is updated feedback, or feedback for guess. Feedback pegs for guess. That's a pretty good name. And oh man, how many hedrons is that? Oh, and by the way, I forgot about. Didn't see films have another odd question. Oh, it was about BDD and acceptance TDD. Here's what the big thing I've learned about TDD that I got wrong initially. And now that I've gotten it right and I talk more with expert TDDers, they're all like, yep, this is the way. And that is, don't test, try not to test implementation details. Try not to TDD that way. Instead, TDD be desired behaviors, which is what we've been doing. So let's see, this should compile. And now let's call it here. And this just improves the code. So I can get rid of this this bookmark. Oh, bookmark. Bookmark. Seems awkward, but I'm glad to have bookmarks. So that fixes up the law of Demeter violations. Now let's look at what that did. Why would you go through all that? Well, it's so that the person reading and maintaining game screen, needing to make changes in it, can see, well, let's see, the feedback pegs are initial. It starts as the initial feedback pegs from the game. And then on check button, there's an action to update the feedback pegs by setting them to the feedback pegs for the guess, which is maintained by the game. It's just, it reduces the mental load, which is one of our goals with TDD, is reduce the mental load. I feel like I had to make some notes on this. What have we done? to reduce mental load. Now you might complain, say it's just hiding stuff. Yes, that's the goal of everything we do in programming. Hide things. Everything is just something talking to something else. Hide it. Reduce your mental load, because the more mental load you have, the less work you'll be able to get done. Johannes, I'm still scared to do TDD, fearing I will be caught up doing the abstraction needed to do TDD than a working thing. Well, I respect that fear, because I hear ya, and I think that's good. At the same time, I encourage you to push past it. Been avoiding concrete implementations in the hopes I might write tests one day. Try different things. This is one of the main things, one of the reasons that a healthy ensemble is continuously practicing continuous retros, as it were, by saying, what if we do things a different way? And if you don't work in an ensemble, a healthy solo programmer in a silo, it will ask, what if I try things differently? And Mudshark, thank you for pointing out, one of the big things about TDD that gets people and takes them down the wrong road is, for example, you need mock objects for everything. Do you, though? Do you? Good advice from Marcus. If you really need a way to really get into TDD, try doing a project that requires language or syntax parsing. So for Kotlin, and it sounds like you're actually, I don't know if you're doing Android work or not, but let me assume for a second you're doing mobile development. Then my encouragement would be, don't start at the view level. That's one of the harder places to TDD. And going off of what Marcus said, taking a network, okay, Android work, perfect. So taking a network response and saying, I need to convert this JSON into something meaningful for internal work. That's a good place to start TDD, if you haven't done already. Same for the reverse. Here is a hunk of a network object graph that we now need to send to somewhere on the internets, on the interwebs. Convert this into JSON. That's a great place to start TDD. Start with that first. Work up, become familiar with how TDD works before you start to tackle it in things like views. I'll just say that. Yeah, essentially, if you can work in something that is more or less just a black box, that's not interacting with stuff, it's just data in and data out. Perfect place for TDD. And then you can start saying, Okay, for example, how do I verify a network call? How do I verify what happens when I get a network response? That would be the next thing I would work towards. Yes, absolutely. Mudshark points out I've done TDD in non-TDD projects, which is almost all of them. All you have to do basically is carve out a safe area where it's like, this is defined and I know what's going on. That's a good place to start. And then you can expand into how do you TDD stuff that you don't know how to even code. Where I don't even know what to call this because I want to call it out. It's an important thing. All right. Well, we have done the law of Demeter. Ta-da! Before we get on to anything else, there's something I want to run by you all. And that is that the feedback I didn't think the feedback view would work. I was fully expecting last time, as we TDD'd this, that it would fail. And the reason was because this doesn't look like other views to me. I was expecting some sort of binding in here, and it worked without the binding. And this was a mystery. So feedback view, let's go to where feedback view is called in here. So here, feedback view, and we're just passing the pegs down. And so the surprise to me, and you can use SwiftUI experts can help me with understand this intuitively, is the feedback pegs. Okay, they start here. They are state, and help me with intuitive understanding. A struct is immutable, so the view itself is immutable. State is a wrapper that says I'm going to take something mutable, hence the var, and sort of wedge it in to something immutable so that this can change. It's got some indirection built in. And so the feedback pegs are a state. They start as the initial feedback pegs. They are updated here by the check button, and it came back here and fed back all the way down. I didn't think that would work, but it did. This leads me to question everything I thought about binding. Binding, I'm realizing, is a two-way street. State is an escape hatch to immutability. Hello, El Migranto. So my question is, when do you need binding? So binding is two-way. It's only when you need to set something up. Also, binding is when you don't own the value, but need to change it. So let's look at other uses of binding. And I want to turn off TCR for a second. So I want to experiment. If we look at bindings, let's start from the bottom. So here's a binding. The code choice view The button is to place the choice in the next slot. And I had this as a binding to pass it down. Does not own any text about changing stuff up there. Yeah. Yeah. What confuses me, though, is the role of methods. Because, for example, if the button, let's say we get rid of the binding, will this still work? We have to update the caller and say, remove the dollar sign there. Now, will this work? Now, I've turned off TCR and it works. Even though it is telling the guest to place the choice in the next slot. Hey, Michaela. Michaela, your photo of... You got to see an actual aurora? I'm so jealous. Right, so if you don't change the guess, you don't need the binding. So what does guess do here? Here's where it gets funny to me. Place choice in next slot does change the guess. That is, it mutates this, but it's a class. Maybe that's why it works. Oh, that is so cool. You're searching for an hour and walking back and saw it? Oh man. Yeah, I just saw it like an hour ago and I was blown away. Oh, my chart. Go get a photo. Yeah. So this El Migranto's warning is that it might compile but not work correctly with the lifecycle of the view. Well, but I have tests. I have tests against this stuff. So it's not just about compilation, it is about the test passing. And this is where I'm confused, is that we are calling... Okay. In C++, there's a distinction between methods that are const methods. That is, they promise, I'm not changing anything. I'm just accessing stuff. And non-const methods, which are allowed to change the object. Place choice in next slot changes the guess. It does. I would love to see the aurora someday. Sometime. And so that's where I worry. And maybe it's premature to say go through and get rid of all these bindings. Here's another one. What does it do with this guess? Well, let's see it here. Okay, so this looks like it is strictly reading. And the binding then is unnecessary. And so we don't need that. And maybe it's working because we're already out here at the... I don't know. Okay, that is... I think we're starting to zero in with Al Migranto's help on why this works. And it's like, because I've got a struct here, but game is a reference type, not a value type. That might be. To Tests passed, yes? All right, they pass. Let's try it. Here we go. Let's do black, 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 brown. Look at that. It works. I mean, I was able to make selections, press the check button, and update the feedback. All right. How do we test that an @observable macro class like guess? I tried to make a protocol because I wanted to have a mock object that I can use in previews for populating data, but I was confused how I actually use a protocol in SwiftUI at the top level of the app. Well, the guess itself here is we've got a couple of funny tests. I think that without @observable, stuff starts to maybe break down. Because then changes to the class are not... Okay, help me again with SwiftUI intuition. By having it be observable, that means that when this changes, it sends a signal to the view saying redraw. Stuff has changed. It's a pub sub thing, I think. Yeah, thank you, B-Bait. Yeah, it seems that if you are using view models in any way, it is common to have it be an observable class. Cool. Thanks for helping each other out. So I'm left wondering, do I need bindings so far? If I keep most of the guts of this... Oh, did this work? Probably not. Yeah, failed. Conceptually, kind of, but not really. It changes all vars to be get set where they not only track changes from setters, but remember what was read from getters. Oh. Really? Huh. Yeah, there are a lot of details in how all this is wired up underneath, sort of how SwiftUI actually works versus I'm just telling it to do stuff and I don't understand. I've sort of reached that stage, I think. I'm telling it to do stuff, but I don't understand what's happening under the hood. Yes, state is passed in. State is always private, but we're passing it in from something. So it seems maybe we're getting lucky that game screen is essentially the official manager of the game and the feedback pegs. Not sure. Like, is that the owner? This is interesting stuff. In any case, the tests pass without the bindings. So I kind of want to check that in because it is simpler. So if you have @observable var of a potato, but it never reads PX when re-rendering. Setting PX somewhere won't cause it to re-render. So you can limit, you can fine-tune how things re-rendering. And re-rendering is certainly something we haven't worried about in this simple app because it's a simple app. But it becomes an issue really fast. I worked in a React Native app where we really had to work on calming the re-rendering down so that it didn't fire all the freaking time and chew up so much CPU. Oh man, I don't know, El Migranto. I'm new to this stuff. But I'm happy committing this. Here, let me turn TCR back on. So far, I feel lucky that the tests passing or failing is enough. We had one case, like I've got a couple weirdo cases of like, is something observable? Which I probably don't need, but it's confusing without it. Hang on, I'm going to mark this as a somewhat risky refactoring. Unnecessary bindings. Stuff is changing so fast. I feel like I haven't even made it to combine yet. Yo. Stuff is changing all the time. Okay, with this, there it is at the top. Yeah. I feel like SwiftUI and the changes that it required, like initially it was like, why do we need this and that? Why do we need all these mechanisms? What are these property wrappers? What are they for? Why do they exist? And then it became clear that, oh, this is for SwiftUI. And now I feel like SwiftUI kind of took over. I hear it was an experiment inside of Apple that somebody started to do something and it worked. And they were like, holy crap, this might change everything. And it has. But I feel like there's been a lot of infrastructure around stuff to make it real. So, what have we learned? Don't always need binding. Oh, it wants to be a user. Especially on a class. Reference object. So that's interesting. All right, let's try to get back to some stuff. Increase size for non-empty. Oh, I'll show you what this is. This is the size of the feedback pegs themselves. That when they're empty, they need to look like there's no peg in it. When see if we get something here. When a white peg goes in, it should look like a peg is in there, not just that it changed color. So we want it to be a little larger. Is that of the first importance, though? No, it's not of the first importance, and yet here we are. It doesn't feel like a big change. I kind of want to try it. A border? Why don't we experiment? Jetpack Compose. Let's see what Johannes has to say. Some similarities. Compose does recompositions for every change. Yeah, there's a lot. And I don't know who first came up with this model. I know that SwiftUI is copying somebody. You know, they didn't just make this stuff up. And Jetpack Compose, I imagine, is also copying somebody. And I don't know who. Do not put unstable things inside your composables. One of the things that we did in React Native to say, well, how often is this thing re-rendering, was just to put in a print statement with a counter and say, look, if we're re-rendering, increment a little counter and print it out. And that simple technique helped us find like you can just say, you know, holy crap, it's re-rendering like crazy when all I did was change this one like color or whatever it is. And so then we had to do lots of tricks around especially memoizing, and that is to say, don't if we've already been through a certain path and gotten an answer, keep a memo. It's called use memo, but you keep it, basically you cache the results. That's the easy way of thinking about it. You cache the results, and if they haven't changed, and there's a way to tell the memo, look, if this thing changes, then wipe out the cache. Like, it's going to affect you. So at that point, forget the cache. But otherwise, cache stuff so that you don't try to recompute anything. And that was a technique, one of the many techniques we had to use. And I imagine there's stuff like that for SwiftUI, but we're not there yet. That's cool. So, let's increase. I want to make this clear. What I want is distinguish empty peg from empty feedback from filled with peg. That's what we want to do. How we want to do it? Well, let's experiment just a little bit. Feedback view. There, edit. How do I show the canvas? I think I'm putting hidden views. It's been so long. Canvas. Option, Command, Enter. There we go. And there's the stuff I need to learn. I feel like that is something I want to copy. As a note. Just noting that down. That seemed like an important comment, summary comment. Command Option Enter. Yep. Remapping is a good idea. So here we are. Let's just experiment briefly. Oh. There, you can still see that. Like, what would it look like? Get smaller. What would it feel like? Here's a circle with the foreground color. And nice, Marcus. I'm just typing stuff here without knowing what I'm doing. Use outline circle with sure color that's making stuff up that doesn't exist. Do. Okay, this is where I think I need where's I was hoping to just pull up Copilot chat. Oh, is that in here? Chat. Let's see. Stroke border. Thank you. Let's see. Yep. That looks like something real. Maybe. Well, I can see it down here, even though it's sort of messed it up. Let's see what chat might have to say. Where did it go? Let's just try it and see. We're trying to decide. What I want to do now is decide on a direction before we commit. And I want to use Copilot for that. And so change so that if the Let's see. Feedback. Peg is any value besides empty. It increases the size of the circle slightly. Let's try that and see if it does anything useful there. Circle size, okay, yeah. I mean, let's just take this and slap it in and see. I just want to know. Okay, it's subtle, but there it is. We can make it a little less subtle. How do you get this out of the way? So there's the difference between something with and without a size. I kind of like that. Although it does change the overall size. We could reduce the size of this. Oh, this might mess things up by changing the total size of the view. What I'm worried about, for example, is that if this stays at 10, if we say empty is like teeny tiny, and we can see this better if we say the others are ginormous, then it changes the size of the view, which I want it to stay the same size, whether it has pegs in there or not. An outline is another possibility, but I kind of like this. Values like for the size? Oh, I see. Yeah, that's kind of interesting. How to do this? Let's ask chat. Where'd it go? Where it is. Let's ask Copilot, I mean. I want the for empty, how to say this? I want, this is new. Yep, and this is my first time using it. The chat option. I want, that's pretty good. I'm gonna give it, but I want empty to remain the same size as the others. Can I have a, can we fix the size somehow? For example, with a transparent. Let's see what it says. To make the empty peg the same size as the others while keeping it visually distinct, you can add a transparent outline. Oh, okay, Michaela, good. Doesn't this take us back to where we were before? I don't quite see how this is different. Let's find out. Yeah, this is bogus. This is bogus. Circle size. I like the direction though. Question is how. Feeling like I also might want to assign a key to Copilot Chat so that I can just bring it up, because minimizing it does nothing. It just makes it go away. So that's kind of a lie, the yellow here. Let's have an outline that has the same size for all pegs, but is transparent for empty and the same color as the main peg. As the feedback color for the other pegs. There we go. There's a stroke with a clear or feedback color. So that looks more promising. Let's see if that does what we want. It's pretty good, actually. It's just exceeding the frame size by that little bit. So we could say, what's the size of this? We've got the frame, which is 12 by 12. The circle, actually that might work. Just because it bleeds over the frame, I'm not concerned. I'm not concerned. Let's see what it feels like. Subtle. That's with a line width of 2. Let's make it a little bigger. I want to try it again. You know, that's not bad. Again. Come on, get lucky here. I want to see white, black, and okay. Ah. Oh well. I think putting it in the backgrounds instead of making it an overlay should work too, unless you want it to bleed over. I don't really care that it bleeds over. I just wanted the size to be the same. So let's say we go with this. Now what? Now we have some changes for which we don't have tests. And so that seems like uncool. Let's see what these changes are. Reset. So I could have snapshot tests, but this is the kind of thing I do, but not here, I don't think. Let's see what snapshots we have. Good question. So I only have snapshots on the check button itself. And the only reason I did that is because I didn't have a way to test the color of disabled versus enabled. For this, and this is where it gets into, it sort of bleeds out of final outcome into something that is a fast unit test, and that is to check the properties of the thing you want. Frame overlay. So did that change the foreground color? Hang on. Let me bring back up the Copilot chat. Foreground color, frame. So it is using an overlay. Yeah, snapshots, that's a reason to be wary of snapshots, is they do break super easily. Hey, 2Dino. So an overlay because we already have the color, we already have the main color. So if this is the new code, this is what I want to test. You know what? What would I test on this? I would want to test the overlay circle stroke. Color. See, this is right here. This is why I want to test. It's a conditional. And that means I want two tests. or one test that handles both conditions. Sorry, I'm kind of stuck here. I'm almost feeling the end of my brain today for some reason. A little foggy. Had a good day yesterday. Went out to see a show. And maybe I'm just a little tired from that. But let's see. Maybe what I want to do, because we have working code. Brain fog. I don't know if you've all seen Joe versus a volcano. I think what I want to do is to commit this. Excuse me. Cough, cough, cough. And then TCR our way back to a test, essentially. So there are times that a TDDer will say, you know what, this is the code we want to test here. We could just kind of do it that way even. But that feels like the cheat. This is the way that adds value, but we don't have a test for it. But let's get it in. This is increase now let's see if we can't write a test for it. Okay, so on feedback peg view, do we have feedback peg view tests? We probably don't. Could the feedback pegs have size and color built in and not be just empty, correct, and misplaced? So, the pegs themselves are simply this. So it's kind of like I want to take a domain. This is the domain model, empty, correct, and misplaced, and translate it further into a feedback peg sort of view model about what do we want in these situations. Because it is funny to have a switch on the peg here, and yet that keeps the color inside of the view. We could do it as an extension in here, potentially. Good question. But let's see if we can't test. You know what? I'm running out of brain. I should just call it. Running out of brain. We could. But that, my hope with keeping feedback peg UI ignorant is so that to try to follow the thinking that the engine behind this, basically the non-UI part of the code, the domain stuff. So we've got it split up by domain and UI. And the domain stuff shouldn't have any expression of the actual like colors or anything, because that might be represented in ASCII. I think back to like, how would you do this in a command line? As my clue for how would I want to separate domain models from UI view models. We could do it as an extension here. I think there's a good chance we'll have a feedback peg extension. Either that, or there needs to be another. Yeah, I don't know. Let's note this as stuff to do. Try stroke border. See, those keys came back for me. What if I just change the stroke border to, I'm just jamming here. Okay. That's interesting. So wait, what if stroke border is transparent? No. And clear. Yeah, that stroke border is not going to work because the foreground color is already down there, and we want we want the peg to be, the empty peg to be look smaller somehow. So let's note this. Feedback peg UI responsibilities. Let's see if, is it like that? Is it like that? There it is. Is your micro board, what board? Garbob? Move UI. There is a Miro template in the Miroverse for discovery tree. So if you create a new Miro board and say, I want to use a template, and there was some trick about this where we had to say, for a team consisting of only me, had to set up a team, otherwise the template didn't work. Then you can say, make me a discovery tree, and it'll start you off with some useful stuff. Otherwise, it's as simple as setting up what things do you need. And at work, I've started to use a discovery tree, but it hasn't really caught on because it's outside of the world of Jira and so forth, but it's how I like to work. I needed another potential thing for like somebody to check analytics, basically QA. And so I needed a new thing in here. It was as easy as saying like that and assigning a color. Unlike Jira, a whiteboard can be anything you want with any random crap you want all over it. And so it's super flexible. All right, let us finish up. There we go. Whew. Any other thoughts of stuff we've learned? GitHub Copilot Xcode now has chat. Other thoughts? Stuff we've observed, learned, discussed before we call it a day. And I'm going to get Kent Beck's book. I'm going to get off of here. I'm going to order it. Going once. Come on, we got something else we've talked about and done here. Reset hard. Yeah, this smells as... This is kind of odd looking. I will grant you that. Observable macro stuff. We did. I don't know what I took away from it. How about we stick it in here? There we go. All right, then. That's a wrap. Thanks very much. We ended up going the whole time, but that's because I'm a little tired. That's okay. We're people. Life goes up, life goes down. There's also tremendous stress here in the United States right now. And yeah, observable object, not for folks who are outside of the US, you are probably seeing travel warnings. Take them seriously. Reconsider if you be very careful with any documentation if you're planning to come to the US for any conferences. It can be like, especially, I guess, don't do anything where you make money in the US if you're coming here. For me, where this could get dicey is if you are a speaker, for example, and you're having travel expenses reimbursed. Say that's not income. Figure out a way with the conference organizers where you're not involved, so that they don't actually pay you anything, even if it's just to reimburse you, so that you can say, I'm not making any money, I'm just here for a conference. All right? Be extra careful. Times are weird. Be good. Be strong. Be brave. Be kind. Let's be... Oh, and next week, Europe will spring forward, so we'll be back more at a normal time. Thanks for joining. Michaela, good to have you. As always, everybody stay safe. Everybody be good. I'll see you next week. Shifted. I'll stay at the same time. All you Europeans shift. All right. For folks who are watching after the fact, do all the things. Like, subscribe, follow, whatever. You made it this far. Right? Thanks for watching. Take care.